What's up, guys? Max here for Rev3 Games, and I'm with Nick Konkle, who is the lead gameplay designer at ZeniMax Studios for The Elder Scrolls Online. Now, this is a game that we heard about a while ago, and it was announced at a little bit before E3 last year, and we're kind of just it's like Star Wars Angry Birds. You took two words and you put them together that, by all logic, should print money, and there was kind of like there wasn't quite the impact we usually get from something with The Elder Scrolls in the title. Mm-hmm. And you guys have come here and you've shown off a lot of stuff that kind of shakes things up, and I'm suddenly much more interested in this game. Now, what you're doing here is tell us your philosophy with this game. Tell us in a nutshell what's going on here.
There's a lot of things that are, MMO-isms that you would never find in an Elder Scrolls game, and they almost all have to do with immersion. Big UI elements in front of your face, or monsters that are really stupid and just attack regularly and don't try to do any sort of tactics against you. We are 100% against. We are about making a game that is immersive, that is tactical and interesting, and then on the whole is basically a social version of what people expect out of an Elder Scrolls game.
Right. So you're combining the two worlds that it's kind of putting oil and water together here. What has impressed me right off the bat is you do have a very clean UI.
Absolutely.
But you still have a hotbar. Mm-hmm. And the combat is real time, and things work together. You've got it's not just like a sort of standalone spell or a standalone attack. You got teamwork elements mm-hmm. there.
Yeah, I guess I might describe the base of it as you can do, anyone can do what you could do with your basic combat in Skyrim with weapons, right? You can attack, you can block, you can defend, but we just took a small set of the spells, the very same sorts of ones you can do in Skyrim: cone attacks, projectile fireballs, stuns, all the good stuff, and we just put a small hotbar, five abilities, and you can fire those off at any time. We really wanted to add that extra element of spells and deck building because it's so good in a social game. To really be able to do a variety of activities. And other than that, I would say it's very much what you'd expect out of an Elder Scrolls game combat system.
Now, 5 spells might scare off some people, but there is weapon swapping, and you can have sort of like a backup list, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a reasonable point. And actually, there's a 6th spell that you can use that's a special one, but it's very much loadout oriented. You don't only have 5 spells in the game. You have hundreds of possible spells out there that you can collect. There's so many. And you're really just picking your loadout for the time. And you get your primary one that is associated with the weapon you currently have, but starting fairly early in the game, level 15 is where you currently have it, you can have a second bar and a second weapon and swap to that mid-combat if you want to. So you can literally go from, and I actually was planning to do this in a demo, but I didn't get around to it. I can literally go from being a ranged mage who's launching entirely spells to being like, what, screw this, I'm going to pull out my 2 swords, go in and start,
right.
Or just pull out a heal staff and start healing people and have an entirely different set of spells.
And that's definitely one of the elements that's very, very Elder Scrolls, and
mm-hmm.
it's not having strict kind of cookie cutter class system.
Absolutely.
But you still are kind of having stuff that's familiar for people coming from a more kind of rigid MMO experience. How are you tackling that? Because you do have a class system. You do have, I think, 4 classes?
Yes, correct.
Tell us about those.
Yeah, sure. So the class system is, I guess, there's lots of different ways of describing it, but basically it's a package of 3 skill lines that you're going to get at the very start of the game that are just for you based on that choice. But those aren't the only 3 skill lines you have. You have 6 weapons, 3 armor, and that's just the beginning. So even the very first choice you made, you could have nothing to do with your class if you wanted. You could immediately begin going, all I care about is dual wield. And I'm not going to take a single spell from my class. I'm only ever going to take abilities and advance my dual wield tree. And that's perfectly viable.
And your kind of your different skills do kind of get experience, a la Skyrim, as whatever you're using.
Sure, yeah. So in addition to if I'm using a dual wield weapon, I'll gain skill with that weapon, which unlocks more powerful abilities with it. The abilities themselves also get powerful as I use them. The spells, they advance as well. So it is perfectly viable to decide, hey, I'm just going to ignore my class entirely and just build via these weapon armor abilities. And in addition to that, there's a whole lot of skill lines that are just out there in the world that you don't start with. things like vampirism and lycanthropy.
Oh.
But yeah, whoops.
Anything else?
But Mages Guild has a set of spells that you can collect for joining them and advancing through the ranks of the Mages Guild. Fighters Guild similarly, and same things for AVA siege weapons. And then there's actually quite a bit other. Your race has one. There's more, but there's actually so many that I don't have them all off the top of my head.
There's a lot going on here. You're trying to have people play together. It's not just a single player experience. So there is that kind of trying to find a class setup that works with each other.
Sure.
It's a cooperative experience. And you've got the enemies do the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to gang up on you in a strategic fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I think this also goes again into Elder Scrolls Online. Like, I don't want a stupid enemy who doesn't care for his life, who doesn't try to do anything unique against me. I want someone who's going to try something, and I'm going to beat him. And that's really a key philosophy. And you start the game where you're just fighting one person, and he's trying to keep himself alive. But then you start fighting more than one enemy, 2 or 3, and then sometimes larger in those large packs in some dungeons that you guys saw. And monsters don't just continue to do the same things that they did when you fought them at level 1. Like, they get new abilities, and based on who they happen to be fighting at the same time with, they do things that work together with them. And that's completely dynamic. Things can get added to the fight. It's not scripted. It's just this really big AI setup that we have on all the monsters in the game, where they just have these ways of working together, which is really exciting. Because when you get into a dungeon where 10 or 11 of them are all in a fight against a group of you, you're just like, there. 3 of them go off in pair and do one thing, and 2 of them go off and fight you, and then one guy just keeps, and you're like, okay, what do I do against this?
It starts off in the Elder Scrolls tradition of a jailbreak. You're breaking out of Molag Bal's Oblivion Plane. Is that right?
Cold Harbor.
Yeah,
yes.
you're sneaking out of that. So there's the getting out of jail, and then kind of starting out. And depending on what alliance you pick, you start out in a different area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And one thing that I think is interesting is you can switch alliances.
So this is something that I think is worth responding to, because I've noticed a lot in people's feedback on forums and so on and so forth, is I want to explore all of Tamriel, and it is the case that when you pick an alliance at the beginning of the game, you are down that path. You're going to play through your entire alliance's set of content and experience the game that way. And you'll never leave that alliance. That's, for the purposes of PvP, that's your identity. But you can, once you've hit 50, jump over to one of the other 2 alliances and experience their content, but at enhanced difficulty. Like, it's pretty hard. It isn't just level 50, it's really level 50 plus.
Gotcha.
And you can play through that entire experience where all the rewards, all the monsters, all the quests are all scaled to increase difficulty. And then after you've done that, there's what we call the 50 plus plus, which is doing the last alliance again. So really, you get the entire game's worth of content by virtue of doing it. And an individual alliance is 120 or so hours of content. So really, you're looking at a huge amount of single player content, which is really the answer to that question of, all right, I just hit level 50. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I'm a solo player and I don't want to PvP,
Yeah,
I think is a perfectly valid question. You don't have to just go play in groups. You can, and it's there, and we're going to make it awesome. That's our goal. But it is your choice. If you want to continue to play the game solo, you can. And because of the way the progression is set up, where when you hit 50, you're not done. You're not even close to done. Doing that is really valuable.
One thing I was curious about is you guys mentioned that there are you got fighters and mages guilds. And there's no comment yet on other guilds. Is that?
I believe we're not discussing the details of that right now.
I asked. But those are kind of they straddle all the alliances.
Yes. They are organizations that span the entire world of Tamriel, and so yes, by virtue of joining the Mages Guild, I have sort of access points to it that are unique to my alliance. But when we actually go to do the content of it, it is this broad experience that has to do with the whole world and really unique environments. It isn't just this Mages Guild guy wants you to go talk to that NPC in your alliance, and a different one. It's like you go into a full-on Mages Guild story quest, and everyone can do that. Similarly for the Fighters Guild. That's true as well. Similarly for the main story.
And you got the stuff that you have that's lined up. That's all for just when the game launches, and you're not they're going to be adding stuff. It's an MMO.
Absolutely.
It's not like it's just going to be kind of a static thing. First person gameplay.
Yes.
That was what was missing from when we saw it back at E3. Tell us about that. Tell us about first person gameplay.
You bet. And I think that's worth bringing up. That it's something we've been sort of on the down low about up to this point, because you sort of have these 2 offsetting goals, right? You want the MMO experience of social large-scale battles, which in a lot of times means being zoomed out, being able to see the area around you. It's, it involves situational awareness, but you also really want that Skyrim single-player immersion feel.
Yeah, put yourself in the shoes.
And so we started with that third-person setup, but always, in our hearts, we always wanted to do them both. And I'd say, especially in the post-announce era, there was so much feedback from people who were adamant that they wanted this to be part of their game. And there was a lot of people who were like, no, we're fine. I'm never going to use first person. But there's just this crowd of people who are like, how can you have a first person? A Skyrim, Elder Scrolls game without first person? And we were kind of all sitting around and be like, yeah, they're right. So we just decided we were going to do it, well, and it's we're pouring our resources into it. We have our game, and it's there.
A little bit we saw looks fantastic. Do we have a release window, a launch window for this at all?
I'm not 100% sure of if we have a date. I think all we said to this point is 2013.
Okay, well that's this year. That's cool. I'll ask you that question again at E3.
All right, you bet.
Nick, thanks so much for talking.
You
guys can stay tuned right here to Rev 3 Games for more of our coverage about Elder Scrolls Online.